Many of you will be familiar with the Vicks Touch of Care campaign. It's quite an emotionally wrenching piece of work, so I hope you've all got your Kleenex or other tissue brands ready. To introduce the next session, I'd like to invite up onto the stage from my hometown of Madras, from MSL, Rema Vasan.
I'd like to introduce Rekha Rao, who's here from Mumbai, India. She's one of the key leaders of MSL in India and also the lead on the campaign that we're here to talk about today, which is Vicks Touch of Care. And it's a real honor to introduce Shri Gauri Sawant. As you've heard already, she's a renowned transgender activist, but above all else, she's a mother. Not only to Gayatri, whom, for those who were here yesterday, you would have seen in the film, but to 9 other children that she's also taken under her care. And she's a true hero, if you think about what she's accomplished in the very conservative Indian context. So welcome, Shri Gauri Sawant and Rekha.
Thank you.
So Gauri, let's talk about Gauri Sawant before the Vicks campaign, about your childhood.
Oh wow, lovely. I'm a butterfly, by the way. I was not born with my wings. I was born as a male, Gauri Sawant. When my family come out to know that I am a transgender, I was very pansy. One day my father said, you have to leave the house. And I was forced, I'm the first migrant from my family. They refused me to accept me and they kicked out me from my house. And I ran away from my house. Biological family, I lived there and joined my gharanas, my gurus. And I stayed with my gurus. I ran away from Pune to Mumbai. And I found my own shelter, my own family, my community member, where I found my guru, my nani and everyone. And that was my new family, where I started my new journey.
Fantastic. So how did you come to be Gayatri's mother?
Oh, Gayatri. I run an organization and I work with sex workers, transgenders and everyone. And we work with so many female sex workers. We work with HIV positive women and all. So one day one fellow came and told me that XX lady has died and she was HIV positive. And I went into her place and I saw that everything was selling out and the girl was also ready to sell out. They wanted her forced to be in sex work. And I could not stop myself because being a social worker, I could not stop. So I could not stop myself also. I hold that girl's hand and I became her mother.
So how has motherhood gone for you? What are the difficulties and challenges that you faced as being a mother?
Oh wow, that's a lovely question. I always say motherhood is a behavior. To love someone, to care someone, there is no need to give a mother. I'm the woman without a uterus and everyone sitting in this hall is a mother because we have XY chromosome. I hope you everyone understand, to love someone, to care someone, that is a mother. So I'm a mother.
Can you talk about your role as being an activist in India?
Actress in India, yes. From conservative India, yes, it's true. If you heard someone calling you, hey bastard, come here, what you will answer? It is same like calling me a hijra. Yes, that is a bad word. If insulting anyone that means a hijra, and people call us like that way. I was not having my identity, and I have to prove myself to what I am. So it is not easy. And then as usually I say that I work with transgenders and all. So what do you say, Rekha? Huh? So it was not easy to come out every day, daylight, not only for bread, butter and everything. Then I thought that I should need my dignity, my identity, and I went to Supreme Court. It is not easy to go to Supreme Court to have my own identity. Try to understand. In Indian government, it has said, I the Indian citizen, who the hell I was. I was nowhere, nothing, anywhere. I was not visible. Though I look like a visible, I was not visible. So I went into Supreme Court, filed a petition. I am the first petitioner who filed a petition in the Supreme Court for my legal identity as a third gender. I'm not happy with the word called third gender because I don't believe that man are fourth gender and woman are second gender. But nothing is better than something is, I'm a third gender.
So, as many of you have seen in the news this week, in the United States, the current administration is considering very narrowly defining gender as determined by birth. So this would effectively restrict the rights of the transgender community in the United States, whether it's from a federal rights perspective or civil rights perspective. Gauri, I'm curious to hear about your thoughts on this consideration.
Very true, it is a shit. It is a very bullshit. Because, yes, it's true, and you can laugh. Because what you have born, gender is not your, it is here. You should have to respect every sexuality. You should have to give respect to each and every person. It is not easy to one fellow to change his gender from male to female or female to male. It is a very natural procedure, and we always follow Western culture. And we respect, so we should have to treat each and everyone with every gender equality. So this is very bad to hear that what you say, but I always say ki we all are equal, so you should have to respect each and every gender identity.
That's great. So, Rekha, let's talk now about the Touch of Care campaign. As Arun mentioned, I am from India originally, although I've lived in the United States for several years. And being the global lead on P&G, I work across many brands, Pampers, always Vicks, and across many other companies prior, like Unilever and Pfizer. But this is a campaign that's truly near and dear to my heart personally, being from India and also what the campaign represents. Let's talk about how Vicks found Gauri.
So, Vicks stands for Generations of Care in India, and we've been a definition of care for over 5 decades that we've existed in India. And the personification of Vicks's care is how a mother and a child are shown, and she's shown applying Vicks on a child's body, and that's about the love and the care that she demonstrates towards her child. Now, however, over the last 50 years, there has been a change in the definition of what care means to people in India. So, from being in joint families and from being cared for by their biological relatives, care has moved into being given by friends, by colleagues, by even strangers at times, because a lot of the India has moved from being from homes which are joint homes to being independent individual families. A lot of the country has moved into being more Western in their lifestyle, more Western in living independently and away from their homes. And therefore, we've all sought, to find our mothers and our aunts and our uncles and our sisters amongst people that we are regularly seen with. And that usually ends up being, we travel in a train, so our train mates become our family. We go to the office, so our colleagues become our family. And sometimes, there are people who bring food for somebody else because they're not living with their parents. So that's the kind of care that is exhibited in the new society that we have in India. And therefore, the definition of family, which earlier meant maybe only biological relationships, has today moved into meaning relationships that one finds and one makes out of their choice. And we needed to show this new relationship come to life. And that's how we wanted to bring alive the touch of care, which initially meant only a mother and child's touch of care, to mean touch of care that we are receiving from different members of the society, and we wanted to bring it alive through a great example. And that's how the journey began, to search for such stories of extraordinary care that we could find from our social context. And what better way to demonstrate that care than to show the story of Gauri, who, like she mentioned, she's a faceless person in the Indian society. Transgenders do not have the dignity, they do not have the respect, and therefore nobody really thinks that transgenders are capable of giving love and care like anybody else. So when we found the story of Gauri, it was through a series of articles that was done by one journalist, Chinky Sinha. She had run stories on which were titled as The Other Mother, and these were about mothers who were not regularly the women that we can think about, but were from transgender mothers who had adopted children. And that's how we came about finding the story of Gauri. And Publicis Singapore made a beautiful film of that story, and now it's for the world to see that the touch of care has transcended from biological to relationships which just existed between two strangers, which is Gauri and the little child Gayatri, who otherwise would have been sold off to a brothel at an early age of 8 years, and that's what her life would have been just because she was born of a prostitute. So it just was about discovering the story and telling it to the world and making the world accept Gauri not as a transgender but as a mother that she is today.
Gauri, can you talk about how you made the decision to really come forward in this campaign?
As I mentioned, motherhood is a behavior. When PNG approached me, and that time Gayatri and my relation was for 9 years. I was there, and I have trust on the brand, what they have done for, and Vicks is the one thing that in every Indian house we trust. And I wanted to know people that even transgenders can be a mother. People should have to, because I say people looked at us as a shit. People don't wanted to touch us, people don't wanted to talk with us, people don't wanted to sit with us. And every time we have just seen as a sex symbol only. And people don't think that even transgenders can be a mother. And this was a good opportunity for myself to let people know that we can prove ourselves. Being a part of society, this is our social responsibility. And Gayatri has given my motherhood completely. So I don't want to lose this opportunity.
I loved what you said to me earlier, which is the idea of motherhood knows no genders.
Yes, I always say that motherhood is a behavior. That is, don't keep in gender,
So Rekha, in many ways, we've been talking over the last day and a half about brand purpose, brands taking a stand. Vicks has taken an enormous stand with this campaign. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
So I think if we can just go back to Mark's, discussion yesterday, and he spoke about how PNG is built in purpose and how they truly stand for diversity, and communications always tries and builds on this philosophy of what PNG stands for. So what better way to go on and build a campaign for Vicks, which was rooted in a reality, which was rooted in purpose, and which was also rooted in the fact that it was core to the brand's proposition, which is about care. So in our journey to find stories that were demonstrative of care, telling the story of a transgender mother was the ultimate pinnacle of taking an example of care from unknown quarter, which you wouldn't even imagine would give that care, and bring that alive through her story of Gauri's motherhood with Gayatri. And that is truly embedded in the larger philosophy of purpose. And this campaign has gone on to do a lot more than we set out to do. Initially, of course, we set out to make a change in terms of the attitudes that people had towards motherhood, attitude that people had towards care. We wanted to seed in the fact that care comes from anybody, and it can be anyone from amongst us. And also we were defined in the fact that family is where care is the whole definition of what we want to build through this new campaign. And Gauri's story told it brilliantly and beautifully because it was an unconventional story to come out amongst the Indian society.
Speaking of Indian society, Gauri, what impact do you think that this campaign and you have had on Indian society? What has changed?
Oh wow. I'm the petitioner who filed the petition in the Supreme Court. After Supreme Court, people start recognizing us. And my entry in the community was like motherhood. Something different. People only think we fight only for our rights. People never thought that transgenders can be a good parent. Means we can do a parenting and all. So this was what you will say, Rekha, for this?
The touch of care.
Touch of care. Yes.
Right. Rekha, we saw in the video the impact that the campaign had, not just from views and impressions, but also importantly from sales and recall. But what was the true mark of success? What were the success criteria that you and the PNG India team held yourselves up to?
So I think yes, every brand with every campaign that we come out with, we do want to make sure that it does move the cash counters and that yes, sales do happen. But while that is a functional, that's probably the functional benefit of what we want to achieve through a campaign. But much beyond that, it's all about the equity that Vicks has set out to build. And it was about reconfirming the equity of care that we were known for in India, And if you really see, it's really not about sales, because if you go into any household in India, there will be a Vicks vapor rub in the home.
Yes.
That's the first choice when a child has cough and cold, or when anybody has cough and cold. So it was really not about selling more Vicks, but it was more about attaching the equity of care and building this equity of care for Vicks, and that's what we wanted to do. When the film came out, yes, it touched a chord with every. I think I can confidently say that every human being who watched Gauri's story and the Vicks Touch of Care film, I don't think there was a single person who was not moved and who did not have tears in their eyes. So the change that it made in terms of giving Gauri the respect that she has today. So from being called a hijra, which is what she mentioned, it's an abuse in India, to being called a mother, which is revered in India. A motherhood is revered in India, and women are worshipped for being mothers. So taking that transition from being an abuse to being a revered, called by a revered name like Ma, is I think what the campaign has achieved, and that's the true impact of the campaign. If we can look at the kind of comments that we have generated on this campaign, if the brand has heard about beautiful stories of recognition, and the fact that dealers, their distributors, the chemists, they're all so proud of the fact that they stock a brand called Vicks, and which is associated with a campaign like Touch of Care, and that's true impact in true measures, because we've really touched upon almost all the stakeholders that any brand could wish for through a beautiful medium of a film and a real life story, and that's what success means to us.
Fantastic. So Gauri, what's next for you?
Long way to go. Yes, I'm building a house called Nani Ka Ghar. The concept is all transgenders are taking care of the abandoned girls. As I mentioned that I work with sex worker women, and sex workers women whole day they are with the clients, they won't take care of the babies, and we don't wanted the girls to be forced in sex work. So the Nani Ka Ghar is a concept where in India we are all taking that girl. As I mentioned, I'm not only mother of Gayatri, now I'm a mother of 9 girls which we are taking care of them, and more girls are going to come in the Nani Ka Ghar. The house, I won't call it a shelter, that is a house where the girls are in a safe hand, where we will give them a good opportunity, they can be and stand on their own feet, and the girl won't go back in the sex work. That is my promise, and that is a Nani Ka Ghar. That's what I'm doing, and I have to work for that.
Fantastic. And Rekha, what's next for Vicks in India?
So, like Gauri spoke about Nani Ka Ghar, and just to tell you that Nani is grandmother, so Nani Ka Ghar is grandmother's house. So Gauri is going to be a grandmother to a lot of children, so not only a mother but also a grandmother. So that's what Nani Ka Ghar is all about, and we are extremely proud that for Vicks the journey was not just about making beautiful films that everybody sees and everybody appreciates, but it was about taking the change from the film into a real impact that we can actually provide on ground. And that's how we set in place a fund which is called as the Touch of Care Fund, and I'm very happy to share with you that Gauri has been the first recipient of the Touch of Care Fund, and it's with the help of this fund that she has started the project of Nani Ka Ghar. And it's literally a dream that has come alive for Gauri. And Rema, you were asking me about impact. We went out to tell the story of one person with Gauri Sawant. And now Gauri Sawant has gone out to build a home where she's going to be taking care of so many more children and so many more abandoned people, and that's impact really, because it's about taking that care from just one Gayatri and giving it to so many more Gayatris who exist in the Indian society. So in that sense, yes, that's what our next move is all about. That how do we make Touch of Care truly impactful in terms of the funding, in terms of giving this source of to be able to support truly extraordinary stories of care and caregivers. So that's what we wish to do with the fund. And of course, taking the story forward with this, we've just recently launched the second edition of the Touch of Care, And it's a superstar it's a story of a superstar that we're bringing to you. And we're debuting this star on, we debuted her in India at a preview at a theater, and we're now debuting her in the US at this platform.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Arun, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Rekha, for joining us. And of course, a very special thanks to Gauri Sawant.
Thank you. Thank you so much.